a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. If you like my videos, please subscribe. It's free. You can always unsubscribe later if you want to. Enjoy the video. So we have covered two sections of this article already, taking advantage of your initiative and how to become a Grandmaster. So now I'm going to cover the section of how to study opening lines. So if we go all the way down here, I missed it, didn't I? I'm just going to go all the way back up and there we go. How to study opening lines. Alright, so Danny asked, are you ready to go, man? Alright. What's this guy's name? Jomabo? Alright, so he asked, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. The question I have is, how does someone at your level or at any level, how should they study lines? For example, I tried to study some lines in the Tartakower Karakan today, and it's really hard for me to differentiate between these different variations. Do you just repeat lines thousands and thousands of times? Or do you have a miracle way or something to memorize them? Fabiano says, so just to elaborate, you're struggling with the memorization of aspect of openings. Yes, differentiating between this line and a line, between this line and that line where maybe a bishop was somewhere in the one where it isn't. Where there are differences between maybe here I should play the move or here I shouldn't. Fabiano responds, but that's a good question. It's also something that top players struggle with. I know I'm not the only one who's struggling with, because I've spoken to other players, and I know that one of the biggest challenges is you analyze a lot of stuff. Most people analyze on a computer nowadays because we really have powerful hardware and powerful software that allows us to really delve deep. I'm gonna assume he said dive deep. Allows us to really dive deep into an opening or into a position we're interested in, and we do great analysis, and then we come to the board and realize we don't remember half of it and we don't understand the other half. That happens to everyone. It certainly happened to me, so I'm still trying to find my way in terms of how I deal with that, how I best memorize positions, and how I best understand them. Because that's the other thing. A lot of times we see a computer line, it tells us that this is good, but that could be based on crazy tactics way down the road. And as a side note too, like, there's been many times where for example, Hikaru and Benjamin Bach, they covered the Tata Steel tournament, and there's a few times where the chat was like, the computer says that this is the best move, and then Hikaru turns on the line and is like, oh wait, the computer says that's the best move, but this is like just such a crazy tactic, like there's no way he's gonna find it. So just because the computer says something is good doesn't necessarily mean that it's the easiest move to find, I guess. Alright, just because we see a number, it doesn't mean that this number is easy or that it has practical impact on a human's game. Yep. Just like I said, it could be that, the position is +2, but it's too difficult to figure out for you on the board. It's not just about having good analysis, it's also about understanding the position that you're looking at intimately. So I think a lot of that comes in over the board work. Alright. This is a picture of Fabiano. Over the board work is essential for learning opening theory. And I guess it's just like looking at the board, like thinking about the position and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, he continues, so even though We all have these great tools to analyze and to understand chess with computers and databases and all that stuff. I still think that over the board work, thinking about a position over the board, is something that you can't just replicate that value in computer work. You really need to get down to a position, thinking about it on your own, not just looking at what the computer says. And that's something everyone struggles with as well. That's something that I struggle with. Like whenever I see a position over the board, for some reason, like I could see that position a lot more clear, like if it was like online chess. But whenever I'm playing with the physical pieces, for me, it like I know for people like Hikaru, it's not that different. But for me, like I could see like, oh my gosh, like if I do these two moves, then it's just winning. But I'm gonna have to sit there for a while for me to figure that stuff out over the board. Anyway, everyone who's seriously analyzing openings has a tendency to overtrust the computer, even though we know the computer is right in most positions. Pretty much in all positions, that doesn't necessarily help you over the board. I'll just give you one example because it's something I remember very vividly about 2 years ago. I was preparing for a player and I noticed that he played a certain opening in that tournament, and the player was Orion Tari. I've heard of him before. He was playing black, and he played this in the tournament. So this was his opening. I'm trying to think of what opening that is. Oh, thank you for the follow, Blazing Clan. I appreciate it. Just noticed just now. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. It almost looks like a Queen's Gambit or something. I'm not too familiar with what different openings actually look like. Or is it the King's Gambit? I'm not sure. Anyway. Basically, this line down is known not to be very good. He played it with black against a strong... Well, I think the reason why it's not known to be very good is he played it with black. Yeah, like you're pushing your kingside pawns, which your kingside pawns usually, whenever you castle kingside, they protect your king. So, yeah, I can see why Fabiano says it's not good, or not very good. And the game was eventually drawn, but that isn't really relevant towards the opening. His opponent played 4d4, and they soon reached a position where a strong computer, a strong stockfish that we were running on mini cores on the cloud said +4. But us, me and my coach at the time, another GM, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name, we were looking at it, and to our eyes, it just looked like a total mess. It said +4 normally. +4, and normally that should be the point to where you say, okay, we're going to stop looking at this because the game is over. But we looked at it and it looked totally unclear. And so, for some reason, we had this idea to run an early version of Fritz. Probably some of you guys are familiar with the OG chess game, Fritz. And Danny says, I remember when I could still beat Fritz 4. Do you know what I'm talking about? Caruana says, we were using Fritz 13, so super strong by Fritz standards. We were running at like 2 cores or something. So not 80 cores, not the 100 cores or whatever that people use these days. And Fritz said it was pretty much equal, like 0 + 2 or minus 0.2. It's something that was basically saying that this position is totally unclear. And I was thinking, how is that possible that 2 quite strong computers, one gives an evaluation like the game was over and the other gives an evaluation, I really don't know what's going on, you have to analyze it. Anyway, so we made them play a game, and it only became clear to Fritz that the position was winning for white like 30 moves later. I was kind of shocked. I was like, how is it possible? I wasn't like white is tactically winning and Fritz didn't see it. It was that this was just winning, and it was way outside the horizon, not in the tactical sense, but in a positional sense almost. In a long game, white just wins. And we know that this early Fritz was way stronger than Magnus or any human player on the planet. So just by that, we realize that even though this was a winning position and the computer shows it, for a human, that doesn't really mean anything unless you actually know how to win. Over the board, you can say it's +4 and white's winning, or you can say, well, this is actually an unclear position and anything can happen. I'm just using that example to say not to overtrust computers because they've gone a bit too strong. They're just living in another world now. It's very helpful when you're analyzing the openings to look at it from a human perspective. Yeah, that's another thing. Like Hikaru is really good at um, differentiating between this move is like a really human move, um, but this move is but whenever if he looks at a line the computer gives him, he could be like, no, that line is way computer like he's not gonna see it most likely, you know like. That's a part of the reason why I really like Hikaru as well. Like he can, I mean, obviously he's a GM, so he has a lot of experience playing chess and everything. But man, he's really good at that. All right, learning what works on a human level is key. Yeah, for sure. Like you can be like, oh yeah, this computer line is is just blowing my opponent off the board. But if it's just a series of moves that are just too hard to find, then you can't really expect somebody to play that unless if they've actually studied what that computer line is, of course. It's difficult, but looking at it over the board and trying to think, I play this and what's which job after f takes e4. And I try to think about that. I try to use that tool myself when I think about positions. Let's say I'm analyzing a line and I have all these crazy variations, and I just like to, when I'm away from the computer, just think about the position of, in my head and what moves come to mind from a purely intuitive. Why can't I say that word? Intuitive human perspective. There, I said the word. Alright, so this is just a quote from Fabiano that I covered earlier in the article. And Danny adds, right, I was going to add that. I mean, that was fascinating even for this lowly IM, which means International Master. To even give a little more context, John Mabo, I would like to say that there's a difference between memorizing the move and then memorizing the why. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, you could be even if you like computer lines again, just bringing up that example, you can be like, okay, this is really strong. But then if you don't know why it's really strong, then it's almost like you're not really sure as to what you're doing, really. But if you analyze, okay, oh, so this is a good move because of this reason, then yes, then you definitely understand the position a lot better for sure. And I do think, obviously, when Fabi tells the story about trying to solve Orion Tari's openings and that level of depth, maybe we're not doing all that. Maybe we're not all doing that, but I do think, and Fabi, maybe you can help me here, I do think there's a process where a lot of times when people are going over their games in rapid fashion or they're trying to memorize their opening repertoire, you can get a bit robotic. And usually two bad things can happen here. One, you usually don't understand, as you said in the Caro-Kann, why the bishop should be on f5 versus d7 in the advanced or g4. Are you actually taking the time to process the why? Not just the current position, but in the middle games that occur. There's a reason why the bishop is on f5 and consistently misplaced because of XYZ, right? And I think that committing that to memory is much more powerful for your chess than memorizing that on move 13 the bishop should go on d7 versus f5. That's the first thing I'd say. That is 100% correct, I think. If you memorize doing these sorts of moves are good because of this reason, or there's XYZ reason why these sorts of moves are good, then that is like really, really valuable to your chess game. And the second thing I'm going to ask you this, Fabi, and I'm asking this question for myself. I've actually found that it could be counterproductive to do too much of that before a tournament because it puts your brain in a space that is maybe not the most powerful for critical thinking, which is basically you're analyzing the position to the point you're willing to play it. It doesn't mean you're actually ready to play it. Yes, I've actually done this before, where I just analyzed the position to the point where I'm like willing to play it. Like I've even in games recently, like even as recent as online games, like yesterday or the day before that, I analyzed a few lines and I'm like, okay, so if these, like, for example, 3 moves happen, then I'm either holding or I'm winning. So sometimes it is a lot better to be able to be in this space where you can actually calculate it to the end and calculate a few different variations as well. And then study too much openings where all you're doing is memorizing where the piece goes and why the piece goes there. It could be doing harmful things to your game, Jumbo, in addition to the fact that you're not actually remembering your lines as effectively as you'd like to. So Fabi, I know that I just added more to the question, but I think that's a really important question. A lot of people struggle with this. So more context, please, can you, based on some of the things I said. Fabiano says, yes, I think that we have to be careful not to also harm our chess with a lot of this technology because it's very easy to get into that purely analytical space where you're doing good at analysis and you create a file and it's very presentable and everything is correct and all that. But that doesn't help you with the board. That doesn't help you at the board when you get there because that's when you have to think on your own. Very correct. Yeah, usually whenever you're like in a tournament, whenever you have this certain preparation at the very beginning of the game, and like after that you're just on your own. Really interesting. Maria Emelianova actually took this picture. This is a good picture of Fabiano. Actually, there's the chess.com thing in the background. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So one of the other helpful things that I like to do for myself is I like to go through the high-level games in the opening variation or the position where which were played in the past, even way in the past. And you could look at them with a computer or you can look at them on your own and try to think about them. But those games are the most valuable because they show how people were thinking about the position. Yes, I also very much so agree with what he says here. And not necessarily because he's a grandmaster, but just because it kind of makes sense in my head with what he says. They show the pitfalls of people going through the typical mistakes, the directions where a human might look to first, and I think top players use that a lot, which is they have the idea, and very often you have an idea which is dangerous but not objectively leading to an advantage. And then you want to test it against another person because you want to see their intuition, what their first instinct is. And you can't get that when you analyze it because, your feeling in a position is colored by the knowledge that the computer gave you, right? That this position is a bit better for white. This is winning for black. So very often that task of what's the human instinct here is given to another player. Yeah, that's another question. Like, whenever you analyze a line, especially I feel like more of a computer-ish line, like asking yourself, like, what the human intuition is or the first human instinct would be. To that is also a good question to ask, especially if you're trying to use like some computer moves in your preparation as well. All right. You play a training game against someone in this position. You say, "This is my idea, and now it's on you to figure out what to do over the board." and it gives you a feeling for how a human approaches the position. I'll be the first to say this technology is incredibly helpful, and it's led to the development of players becoming stronger, younger, and the next generation. And the generation after that will be stronger than the previous, I think. That's, I think, undoubtedly true, and most of it is due to our knowledge and the technology we have that allows us to learn so much so quickly. So I guess this picture was taken in Norway chess, I guess. They're using a lot of pictures from Maria Emelianova, but I guess I can't really complain because she's really good at snapping these pictures. Technology is helpful, but you can't overtrust computers. Yeah, that's a very important notice. All right, so we're almost at the end of this section of the article here. All right. But you have to use it wisely. You have to make sure you're still thinking about the position and you're not letting the computer do the thinking for you. So you just use it as a tool rather than, it's just taking control of everything and you're just there to press buttons and to create neat files. That's a problem that I think everyone or anyone who seriously analyzes openings will fall into that, including players that are at the very top. And I know that Magnus tries to avoid that as best he can by trying to avoid computer as much as he can, of course. You can't avoid it completely. It's super helpful and important use, but trying to make sure that it doesn't affect his play. It doesn't get in the way of his understanding of the position. All right, so Danny adds, good stuff. Yes, we say don't just press spacebar. Spacebar, next move, or whatever. With great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, of course. Dude, that was from a movie, wasn't it? With great power comes great responsibility. I can't remember where that was from, but yeah, that was definitely from something. You just got rating of 1900 on chess.com after getting 1800 for the first time less than a month ago. Improving fast and I'm excited. Nice. Yeah, I'm not as high as you, bro, but yeah, I know Lee chess ratings are more inflated, whatever, but yeah, like I'm like between 1200 and 1300, I think, for Lee chess now. So yeah, like whenever I kind of get in the headspace of like I'm playing really good, like I just want to keep going. I keep going. Anyway, don't overuse the computers. I will double down on what Fabi said too, Jamoba, and then we're moving on from this. Training games, so important, right? To set up the training position for move 13, move 15, move 20, it's going to be much more effective probably to your understanding of the position. A lot of people spend too much time doing other things. I think training games are a really powerful way to get better. Yeah, I've never really done training games. Well, I suppose I've never even competed in a real chess tournament before either, but yeah. All right, so that's going to be it for the article today. I think on Thursday, whenever I stream more chess and everything, I'll cover this section. The difference between preparation and playing chess.